You want a piece of me, boy?
Hey YouTubers, it's Nuke again, coming at you with the second set of Fantasy vs. Mind. This is the best of 3 in the round of 8 of the Incruit OSL 2008. There's a mouthful. I can't say I'm looking forward to this match and or matches, whatever. Well, if Mind wins this match, it will go on to a third match, but I can't say I'm looking forward to this too much, because Terran versus Terran is probably my least favorite matchup, and this match is not going to be on Plasma, so we're probably going to see standard TVT, which is what I consider one of the most boring matchups in StarCraft. I think it's even worse than Zerg versus Zerg, because at least in Zerg versus Zerg, the matches are over in like 5 to 9 minutes, so yeah, Terran matches usually go on a long time, so I have my bag of Funyuns here, my generic bottle of water, and I am prepping for a long game. I'm not quite sure how long it will be. I kind of hide the links for myself so I don't get too, I don't expect cheese or anything like that. I do like to go into these games very fresh, not knowing who's winning or not knowing if there's a third game, stuff like that. It's a little bit hard to hide such things from yourself, but I find ways to do it. As you can see, a lot bigger crowd for this one. The second match is a very important match. If Fantasy wins this, he will move on to the semifinals and face the winner of GG Play versus Flash. I have watched that match and or matches, and I know who wins between GG Play versus Flash. And if you've not seen it, you have to see those matches. Very, very fun matches. Looks like we have an orange at the 7 o'clock position or 8 o'clock. We have Fantasy. I think this map is Medusa. There is Mind over there, I think in Teal, which is very appropriate because he's wearing Teal right now. He is also a Terran player. This is a mirror matchup. One of the most boring mirror matchups on the planet, in my humble opinion. I am HO. But hopefully these guys will provide us a very good game. I know Mind has very good Terran mech control. He wasn't really able to show that off on Plasma because of all the lurker eggs, and it was just kind of a pain to get around on Plasma, but Medusa has a nice, big, open area in the middle. Excuse me, this isn't Medusa, this is Return of the King. I should probably look into the info before I start doing this, because I remembered that Medusa does have kind of weird starting points. These points aren't nearly as weird. You see Fantasy is sending out an SCV to scout right away. We'll see if he goes the right direction or not. And Mind putting up a very quick gas. Looks like he is preparing. Fantasy putting out kind of a proxy, sorta semi-proxy barracks here. So we'll see what he does with this. Mind might not be able to cope with that if he's going straight for tech here. Well, you know what? Fantasy is probably just going to float that barracks out. I don't think he's going to use it to get a whole lot of Marines, maybe not even any Marines, because usually in TVT you see each player go some kind of mech. Maybe air, maybe mech, usually a lot of dropships and a lot of tanks. So we will see what happens here. Yeah, because I remember on the Plasma map, I was getting all excited because what's his name? Fantasy was putting out kind of like a proxy sort of barracks, but he just used it to float it over, which is, what's he gonna, no, he's actually producing Marines out of this, so he might be trying for kind of an early push here, maybe try to put a little bit more pressure on Mind while he is building his factory here. Looks like Mind is getting a Marine or two out right now too, just to have a few units to cope with any other units here. And it looks like Fantasy is going to scout up with his Marine. And there is Mind's Marine chasing Fantasy out of the base. And Fantasy builds his factory. Pretty standard TVT so far. Factory's going up for both players. Let's see, I don't think Mind knows exactly where Fantasy is right now. There's Fantasy repositioning his factory. Be the legend. I like that that slogan for this year's, this Incruit OSL. Be the legend. There is a starport going down for Mind, it looks like. And Fantasy is going for an expansion here, so right off the bat these two are kind of branching off into their own separate little strategies here. We'll see who will benefit here. Mind with an earlier dropship might have an advantage here to disrupt some of the economy of Fantasy, because Fantasy is going to try to use that command center to get a bigger economy going than Mind. Mind is doing a good job of blocking his ramp there, not going to let Fantasy get up to get a scout. And there is the starport. Not sure why all these guys are lifting everything before they land, but hey, I'm not a pro gamer. Who am I to question these guys? There's Fantasy moving out with a small force. Looks like he's going to try to put a little bit of pressure on. A little bit of early pressure, maybe try to do some kind of flank. Mind has the same idea here. That barracks from Fantasy is going to get taken down eventually here, but not before getting a good scout out. You might get a scout on that starport. Well, maybe not. It looks like he is floating the racks down, try to find an expansion. We'll see if Fantasy is able to get the scout out on the starport. That'll be very important for him to do this. It looks like he will not. I don't think the barracks is going to make it back to the starport, even if he tries to float it over now, because the Marines are hammering away at it right now. And there's Fantasy going for his armory. Going to try to get maybe some Goliaths, maybe some upgrades for his tanks. Fantasy's barracks is still alive here, but I'm sure he saw that Wraith with that barracks, so now he knows there's a starport up. That Wraith might be a little bit hard to deal with for Fantasy here. He only has a couple Marines out that could deal with it, and it looks like Mind is gearing up for some kind of, he's trying to go for a little bit of a contain here. He's putting the bunker down, and now there is a control tower up trying to get cloak mode going on that first Wraith. And Mind has a good scout out here with his barracks. Yeah, Mind's setting up a very early contain. This might be a very successful contain too. He's putting a lot of bunkers down, and he's going to try to lock Fantasy into his natural expansion and keep him from expanding, while Mind is putting down his expansion right now. Mind is not going to be nearly as disrupted as Fantasy here, since there's really no way for Fantasy to break out right now and go and disrupt Mind from building his second base. There is Fantasy doing a nice little defensive matrix there. Well, not the spell defensive matrix, but you know what I mean. There's a Wraith trying to take out that landed barracks. Not quite sure why Fantasy landed that. There is, looks like Mind has scanned Fantasy's base, so he might be thinking about pushing in here a little bit. Terrans usually scan a base right before they push in, but I think whoa, I'm not sure if that Wraith's gonna make it. Yeah, the Wraith does make it, and Fantasy was prepared with his Goliaths. Fantasy just now getting scan up, so he's going to be able to see what all Mind is up to here. Although Mind does have a very nice contain here on Fantasy. Fantasy's going to have to build up some tanks and break out of this somehow.